What's your
Okay, let's go. Read from here, please.
What's your name? My name's Salwa. What's your dad's name? My dad's name's Muhammad. What's your sister's name? My sister's name's Samira. What's your cousin's name? My cousin's name's Numan. What's your cousin's brother's name? My cousin brother's name's Numan. What's your cousin sister's name? My cousin sister name's Shirley. What's your teacher's name? My teacher's name's Aira. What's your friend's name? My friend's name's Tasmia. What's your friend's dad's name? My friend's dad's name's Abdullah. What's your friend's mom's name? My friend's mom's name's Fatima. What's your cousin's dad's name? My cousin's dad's name's Abdullah. How old are you? I am 10 years old. How old is your sister? My sister's 7 years old. How old is your dad? My dad's 43 years old. Where do you live? I live in Barcelona. Where do your parents live? My parents live in Barcelona. Where does your dad live? My dad lives in Barcelona. Where does your mom live? My mom lives in Barcelona. Where does your sister live? My sister lives in Barcelona. Where does your uncle live? My uncle lives in Bangladesh. Where does your aunt live? My aunt lives in Bangladesh. Where does your cousin live? My cousin lives in Bangladesh. Who do you live with? I live with my family. Who does your sister live with? My sister lives with us. Who does your dad live with? My dad lives with us. Who does your mom live with? My mom lives with us. Do you all live together? Yes, we all live together. Does your uncle live with you? No, my uncle doesn't live with us. Who does your uncle live with you? My uncle lives with his family.
Say the question again.
Who does your uncle live with?
No.
My uncle lives with his family. Who does your aunt live with? My aunt lives with my uncle. Who does your cousin live with? My cousin lives with his parents. Who does your friend live with? My friend lives with her parents. Who does Tasmia live with? Tasmia lives with her parents. Who does Samira live with? Samira lives with her parents. Who does Salwa live with? Salwa lives with her parents. Where does Tasmia live? Tasmia lives in Bangladesh. Where does Salwa live? Salwa lives in Barcelona. Where does Samira live? Samira lives in Barcelona. When do you wake up? I wake up in the morning. When do you sleep? I sleep at night. When do you have breakfast? I have breakfast in the morning. What do you have for breakfast? I have bread and butter for breakfast. When do you have lunch? I have lunch in the afternoon.
In the
What
afternoon.
in the afternoon? What do you have for lunch? I have rice and chicken for lunch. When do you have dinner? I have dinner at night. What do you have for dinner? I have rice and vegetables for dinner. When do you go to bed? I go to bed at 10 o'clock. What do you do before going to bed? I freshen up and brush my teeth before bed. How long do you sleep at night? I sleep 8 hours at night. What time do you wake up in the morning? I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. What do you do after waking up in the morning? I freshen up, make wudu, and I pray my Fajr prayer. When do you wake up? I wake up at 6 o'clock. When does your sister wake up? My sister wake up at 7 o'clock.
Sorry.
My sister wakes up at 7 o'clock. She wakes up at 7 o'clock. When does your dad wake up? My dad wakes up at 5 o'clock. Or he wakes up at 5 o'clock.
5, not 5. 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. When does your mom wake up? My mom wakes up at 5 o'clock. Or she wakes up at 5 o'clock. When does your cousin wake up? My cousin wake up at
Right?
6 o'clock.
My cousin.
When does your cousin wake up? My cousin wakes up at 6 o'clock. Or she wakes up at 6 o'clock. When does your friend wake up? My friend wake up at 7 o'clock. My friend wakes up at 7 o'clock. Or she wakes up at 7 o'clock. When does Samira wake up? Samira wakes up at 7 o'clock. Or she wakes up at 7 o'clock. When does Tasmia wake up? Tasmia wakes up at 6 o'clock. Or she wakes up at 6.
Tasmia wakes up.
Tasmia wakes up at 6 o'clock.
Mm.
Or she wakes up at 6 o'clock.
And say this, read this sentence again, this one.
Which one?
The one I selected.
Okay. She wakes up at 7 o'clock.
7, V, 7.
7.
Okay, good. Carry on.
When do you have breakfast? I have breakfast at 8 o'clock.
I have breakfast. Separate. I have breakfast. Take your time.
I have breakfast at 8 o'clock. When does your sister have breakfast? She has breakfast at 8 o'clock. When does your dad have breakfast? He has breakfast at 10 o'clock. When does your mom have breakfast? She has breakfast at 10 o'clock. When does your cousin have breakfast? She has breakfast at 12 o'clock. When does your friend have breakfast? She has a breakfast at 9 o'clock. When does Samira have breakfast? She has breakfast at 8 o'clock. When does Tasmia have breakfast? She has breakfast at 10 o'clock. When do you have lunch? I have lunch at 2 o'clock. When does your sister have lunch? She has lunch at 2 o'clock. When does your dad have lunch? He has lunch at 3 o'clock. When does your mom have lunch? She has lunch at 3 o'clock. When does your cousin have lunch? She has lunch at 4 o'clock. When does your friend have lunch? She has lunch at 3 o'clock. Wh- When does Samira have lunch? She has lunch at 3 o'clock. When does Tasmia have lunch? She has lunch at 2 o'clock. When do you have dinner? I have dinner at 9 o'clock. When does your sister have dinner? She has dinner at 8 o'clock. When does your dad have dinner? He has dinner at 10 o'clock. When does your mom have a dinner? She has dinner at 9 o'clock. When does your cousin have dinner? She has dinner at 10 o'clock. When does your friend have dinner? She has dinner at 10 o'clock. When does Samira have dinner? She has dinner at 8 o'clock. When does Tasmia have dinner? She has dinner at 8 o'clock. When do you go to bed? I go to bed at 10 o'clock. When does your sister go to bed? She goes to bed at 10 o'clock. When does your mom go to bed? She goes to bed at 10 o'clock. When does your cousin go to bed? She goes to bed at 11 o'clock. When does your friend go to bed? She goes to bed at 10 o'clock. When does Samira go to bed? She goes to bed at 10 o'clock. When does Tasmia go to bed? She goes to bed at 9 o'clock. What do you have for breakfast? I have bread and butter for breakfast. What does your sister have for breakfast? She has milk and biscuit for breakfast. What does your dad have for breakfast? He has bread and omelette for breakfast. What does your mom have for breakfast? She has bread and orange juice. She has bread and orange juice for breakfast.
Juice, not juice. Juice, orange juice.
Orange juice for breakfast. What does your cousin have for breakfast? She has cereals with milk for breakfast. What does your friend have for breakfast? She has bread with jam for breakfast. What does Samira have for breakfast? She has cereals with milk for breakfast. What does Tasmia have for breakfast? She has bread with honey for breakfast. What do Samira and Tasmia have for breakfast? They have cereals for breakfast. What do they have for breakfast? They have porridge. They have porridge for breakfast.
Porridge
for breakfast.
Porridge.
Porridge. Porridge. What do you have for lunch? I have rice and chicken for lunch. What does your sister have for lunch? She has rice and meat for lunch. What does your dad have for lunch? He has rice and fish for lunch. What does your mom have for lunch? She has rice and vegetables for lunch. What does your cousin have for lunch? She has rice and meat for lunch. What does your friend have for lunch? She has rice and lentils for lunch. What does
Lentils, lentils, not lentils, lentils, lentils,
lentil,
lentils.
lentils,
I is silent, lentils.
lentils for lunch? What does Samira have for lunch? She has chips for lunch. What does what does Tasmia have for lunch? She has fish and chips for lunch. What do Samira and Tasmia have for lunch? They have fish and chips for lunch. What what do they have for lunch? They have chips and wings for lunch. What do you have for dinner? I have rice and salad for dinner. What does your sister have for dinner? She has rice and curry for dinner. What does your dad have for dinner? He has rice and vegetables for dinner. What does your mom have for dinner? She has rice and meat for dinner. What does your cousin have for dinner? She has she has chips and wings for dinner. What does your friend have for dinner? She has only salad for dinner. What does Samira have for dinner? She has paella for dinner. What does Tasmia have for dinner? She has paella for dinner. What do Samira and Tasmia have for dinner? They have paella for dinner. What do they have for dinner? They have chips and wings for dinner. Who do you have breakfast with? I have breakfast with my parents. Who does your sister have breakfast with? She has breakfast with us. Who does your dad have breakfast with? He has breakfast with us. Who does your mom have breakfast with? She has breakfast with us. Who does your cousin have breakfast with? She has breakfast with her parents. Who does your friend have breakfast with? She has breakfast with her siblings. Who does Samira have breakfast with? She has breakfast with her family. Who does Tasmia have breakfast with? She has breakfast with her parents and siblings. Who do you have lunch? Who do you have lunch with? Who does your sister have lunch with? Who does your dad have lunch with? Who does he have lunch with? Who does your mom have lunch with? Who does she have lunch with? Who does your cousin have lunch with? Who does your friend have lunch with? Who does Samira have lunch with? Who does Tasmia have lunch with? Who do Samira and Tasmia have lunch with? Who do they have lunch with? Who do we have lunch with? Who do you have dinner with? Who does your sister have dinner with? Who does your dad have dinner with? Who does your mom have dinner with? Who does your cousin have dinner with? Who does your friend have dinner with? Who does Samira have dinner with? Who does Tasmia have dinner with? Who do Samira and Tasmia have dinner with? Who do they have dinner with? How often do you pray? I pray 5 times a day. How often do you have an English lesson? I have an English lesson twice a week. How often do you visit your cousin? I visit my cousin once a week. How often do you see your doctor? I see my doctor at least once a year.
Doctor.
Doctor. I see my doctor at least once a year. How often do you get new clothes? I get new clothes twice a year. How often do you eat out in a restaurant. I eat out in a restaurant sometimes. How often do you invite your cousins? I invite my cousins at least one to 8 days. 8 days. How often do you wash your clothes?
Ask that question
I
again.
wash.
How often?
How often do you How often do you invite your cousins? I invite my cousins at least 1 to 8 days.
On.
On 2 8 days.
Mm.
How often do you wash your clothes?
Mm.
I wash my clothes once a week. How often do you make your bed? I make my bed at least once a day. How often do you ask your teacher a question? I ask my teacher a question whenever I need.
I
How
ask
often
teacher a question. Teacher a question.
teacher a question whenever I need.
Again, I ask my.
I ask my teacher a question whenever I need. How often do you eat sweet? I eat sweet pretty much every day. How often do you eat fish for lunch? I eat fish for lunch at least once a week. How often do you eat chicken for lunch? I often eat chicken for lunch. How often do you eat meat for lunch? I eat meat for lunch at least once a week. How often do you how often do you do your school homework? I do my school homework pretty much every day. How often do you help your sister with her homework? I often help my sister with her homework. How, with her homework. How often do you help your parents with something? I help my parents with whenever they need help. How often do you ask your dad to buy you something? I ask my dad to buy
the question
something
again.
when I need.
Ask,
How
ask.
often do you How often do you ask your dad to buy you something? I ask my dad to buy me something when I need it. How often do you visit a zoo? I hardly ever visit a zoo. How often do you visit a museum? I hardly often I hardly ever visit a museum. How often do you speak Spanish with your parents? I hardly ever speak Spanish with my parents.
Spanish.
Spanish. How often do you speak English with your parents? I never speak English with my parents. How often do you speak Bengali with your parents? I always speak Bengali with my parents. How often do you speak Bengali with your sister? I always speak Bengali with my sister. How often do you speak Spanish with your sister? I hardly ever speak Spanish with my sister.
Spanish.
Spanish. How often do you speak English with your sister? I never speak English with my sister. How often do you sing? I never sing. How often do you dance? I never dance.
Dance.
How often do you speak the truth?
Again,
How often do you dance? I never dance. How often do you speak the truth? I always
speak the truth. Truth.
The truth. How often do you speak the truth? I always speak the truth. The truth.
Truth. Truth.
Truth. How often do you lie? I never lie. I never ever lie.
I never ever lie. Okay. Good. Carry on.
How often do you fight with your sister? I hardly ever have a fight with my sister. How often do you laugh? How often do you laugh?
Laugh. Laugh.
How often do you laugh? I often laugh. How often do you cry? I hardly ever cry. How often do you visit a sick person? I hardly ever visit a sick person.
Mm.
When do you usually go to bed? I usually go to bed at 10 p.m. When do you usually do the shopping?
Usually.
I
Usually.
I usually do the shopping every week.
Mm.
When do you usually go to school? I usually go to school at 8:30 p.m.
Eight.
At 8:30 a.m.
Mm.
When do you usually do your homework? I usually do my homework at 6 p.m. When do you usually have your lunch? I usually have my lunch at at 1:30 p.m.
1:30. 30, not 30. 30. 1:30 p.m.
1:30 p.m.
Carry on, please.
Why do you go to school? I go to school to learn important things for my life. Why do you visit the zoo? I visit the zoo to see the animals. Animals.
Animals. Animals.
Animals.
Mm.
Why do you go to see a doctor? A doctor. I go to see a doctor for medical treatment.
Mm.
Why do you go to the gym? I go to the gym to do some exercise. Why do you go to bed early? I go to bed early because I want to wake up early. Why do you wake up early? I wake up early because I want to pray my Fajr prayer. One time. On time.
On time. Yes.
Why do you study English? I study English because I want to speak English. Why do you study English with me? I study English with you because I want to improve my English. Why do you speak Spanish
Spanish.
at school?
Spanish. Spanish.
Why do you speak Spanish at school? I speak Spanish at school because everyone speaks Spanish there.
Everyone. Every, not every. Every.
Everyone speaks Spanish there.
Mm.
Early is before the usual time. To improve is to make something better.
Good. Carry on.
The verb to have in the present. I have a sister. I have my sister. I have my own sister. You have a brother. You have your brother. You have your own brother. You have parents. We have parents. We have our parents. We have our own parents. You have lunch. You have your uncle. You have your
Again, you
you
have
have uncles.
uncles. Mm.
You have your uncles. You have your own uncles.
Mm.
They have friends. They have their friends. They have their own friends. She has a cousin. She has a cousin brother. He has his cousin brother.
Again. Again, he has.
He has he has a cousin brother.
Mm.
He has his cousin brother.
Mm.
he has his own cousin brother.
Mm.
She has a cousin sister. She has her cousin sister. She has her own cousin sister. Nabil has a brother. Nabil has his brother. Nabil has his own brother. Jamil has a sister. Jamil has his sister. Jamil has his own sister. Nabil and Jamil have cousins. Nabil and Jamil have their cousins. Nabil and Jamil have their own cousins. Salwa has a sister. Salwa has her sister. Salwa has her own sister. Samira has a cousin. Samira has a cousin brother. Samira has her own cousin brother. Samira has her own cousin sister brother. Salwa and Samira have cousins. Salwa and Samira have their cousins. Salwa and Samira have cousins. No, Salwa and Samira have their own cousins. Who do I have? I have I have a sister. Who do I have? I have a brother. Who do I have? I have a cousin brother. Who do I have? I have a cousin sister. Who do I have? I have my parents. Who do I have? I have my uncles.
Okay.
Who do you have? I have a brother. Who do you have? I have a sister. Who do you have? I have a cousin brother. Who do you have? I have a cousin sister. Who do you have? I have my parents. Who do you have? I have my uncles. Who do we have? We have our parents. Who do we have? We have our parents. Who do we have? We have our own parents. Who do we have? We have uncles. Who do we have? We have our uncles. Who do we have? We have our own uncles. Who do we have? We have cousins. Who do we have? We have our cousins. Who do we have? We have our own cousins. Who do we have? We have a teacher. Who do we have?
Because
We have teachers. Who do we have? We have our own. We have our teachers. Who do we have? We have our own teachers. Who do they have? They have parents. Who do they have? They have their parents. Who do they have? They have their own parents. Who do they have? They have uncles. Who do they have? They have their uncles. Who do they have? They have their own uncles. Who do they have? They have teachers. Who do they have? They have their teachers. Who do they have? They have their own teachers. Who does he have? He has a cousin brother. Who does he have? He has his cousin brother. Who does he have? He has his own cousin brother. Who does she have? She has a cousin sister. Who does she have? She has her cousin sister. Who does she have? She has her own cousin sister. Who does Nabil have? Nabil has a brother. Who does Nabil have? Nabil has his brother. Who does Nabil have? Nabil has his own brother. Who does Jamil have? Jamil has a sister. Who does Jamil have? Jamil has his sister. Who does Jamil have? Jamil has his own sister. Who do Nabil and Jamil have? Nabil and Jamil have cousins. Who does Nabil and Jamil have? Nabil and Jamil have their cousins.
this
Who
question,
do Nabil?
what does
Who do Nabil?
Nabil and Jamil have?
Who do Nabil and Jamil have? Nabil and Jamila have their cousins.
Very good. Let's go.
Who do Nabil and Jamil have?
Mm-hmm.
Nabil and Jamil have their own cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Who does Salwa have? Salwa has a sister. Who does Salwa have? Salwa has her sister. Who does Salwa have? Salwa has her own sister.
Mm.
Who does Samira have? Samira has a cousin brother. Who does Samira have? Samira has her cousin brother. Who does Samira have? Samira has her own cousin brother. Who do Salwa and Samira have? Salwa and Samira have cousins. Who do Salwa and Samira have?
Cousins. Cousins.
Cousins.
Mm.
Who do Salwa and Samira have? Salwa and Samira have their cousins.
Mm.
Who do Salwa and Samira have? Salwa and Samira have their own cousins.
Good.
What do you have in your wallet?
Wallet,
I
correct.
have money in my wallet.
Mm.
What do you have in your bag? I have my books in my bag.
Mm.
What do you have in your mouth? I have my tongue and teeth in my mouth.
Mm.
What do you have in your head? I have my I have my head. What I
Sorry?
have my brain in my head.
Rain in my head. Yes.
Brain in my head. What what do you have in your hearts? In your hands? I have nothing in my hands. What does he have in his bag?
Mm.
He has his books in his bag. What does she have in her bag? She has her pen in her bag. What does she have in her wallet? She has she has nothing in her wallet. What does Salwa have? What does Salwa and Samira have in their
No, this one.
bags?
What does Salwa have?
What does Salwa have in her bag? Salwa has her books in her bag.
Mm.
What what do Salwa and Samira have in their bag? In
Bags.
in the bags.
Mm.
They have their books in their bags.
Thank you for reading so far.